Hello, welcome everyone. I am Deanne Mazzochi, your state representative for the 47th District. Thank you so much for joining us via Zoom and by Facebook Live to talk about this critical topic of identity theft. While we're letting everyone jump on into the Zoom call and to have some time to get in on Facebook, I do want to let you all know that if you have questions, we do encourage you to type them in the Q&A feature on below on the Zoom call, or if you want to type them into the comments section on Facebook. And we do have people monitoring them, so we'll make sure that we can get them no matter which platform you are trying to use. So we'll just give everybody a few minutes to start joining. And then we will be good to go. So again, I just want to remind everybody, please put any questions in the Q&A function, and we will be monitoring that over the course of the presentation. So just as a little bit of background for why I wanted to run this for everyone, you know, we're in an era where we do get so much in terms of benefits from technology, but unfortunately that has come with downsides as well. So in Illinois, we know that cybercrime and cyber identity theft is up. One of the largest sources of identity theft that people have been hearing about recently in Illinois has to do with the Illinois Department of Unemployment Security. My district office has probably gotten thousands of calls that it involves everything that people are dealing with when it comes to unemployment and finding fraud that's happening and associated with those unemployment claims. And in fact, one of the reasons why this is a particularly pernicious problem is because more unemployment claims were filed between February and May of 2020 than we've seen since the last major recession in 2009 to 2010. So, you know, the fraud claims, not only are people, you know, trying to get money that shouldn't be getting it, but the people who actually do need it and do deserve it, you know, then sometimes their funds are actually either getting rerouted or getting put on hold. Now here in Illinois, our state unemployment agencies, they have identified perhaps some corporate data breaches that have allowed for criminals to file for benefits using stolen identities. There are other causes as well. And what we do know is just about everyone in Illinois has been touched by this, or they know someone who has. So, you know, and we also know that a lot of people have been experiencing frustration in that they're not getting clear information out of Illinois Department of Employment Security about what has happened with their identities, what are the consequences of this fraud, and a whole host of other things. And we're in the new start of a new legislative session. So I've actually been working on legislation to try to do some things to help stop this, which would include requiring IDES to use things that we see in the private sector, such as two-factor authentication, which will also hopefully help to cut down on some of the fraud. We also know that recently the Illinois Attorney General's office did announce that they're going to try to team up with the FBI to tackle some of the unemployment insurance benefits fraud. And, you know, and it really is a very serious and prevalent problem that's been causing issues for a whole host of innocent people here in Illinois, both employed and unemployed, as well as for employers, you know, who are also trying to work through that mess. Now, I'm sure the comptroller's office, who's joining us tonight, will go through this in more depth, but the Illinois Department of Employment Security, which we abbreviate IDES, they recommend that anyone who has been notified of a fraudulent unemployment insurance claim that's been issued in their name, please, as soon as you can, call 1-800-814-0513. I would also recommend that you reach out to our office. My number is 630-852-8633, or you can email us directly at Mazzochi, MAZZOCHI, at ilhousegop.org. And then that way we can try to help you, particularly if you find out that you're not getting any type of response from IDES. So IDES has indicated that recently they believe they've stopped about 350,000 fraudulent claims, but we know that hundreds of thousands more have happened and keep happening. So we really do encourage all of our district residents to try to be vigilant and report those fraud claims as soon as they encounter them. So again, I just want to give a friendly reminder, please send in your questions. Again, you can post them in the comment post on Facebook, or you can put them in the Q&A section below, and we are going to try to get to all of your questions when we get to the end of the presentation. So for now, I would like to turn the floor over to Samantha Alonso, who is the Program Manager of the Department of Constituent Affairs with the Illinois Comptroller's Office. She's going to discuss with you tonight how to identify scams, how to protect your information, and also some of the state resources that are available if you do find yourself the victim of identity theft. So thank you, Samantha, and the Comptroller's Office for this presentation for our district residents. And the floor is over to you.
Sorry, hello. I'm so happy to be here today. I will be sharing my screen in a moment. But yes, like was mentioned earlier, identity theft is a very big issue here in the state of Illinois. And I'm really happy that I have opportunity here to explain the different resources that are available, the different ways to identify identity theft if you've been a victim of it, if you have not been a victim of it, and what to do if you actually are a victim of identity theft and how to prevent it in the long run. So I will share my screen right now. Okay, can you see it?
I can see it if you can.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone else can. If anyone can't see it, please let us know in the Q&A. And if for whatever reason, maybe you're only seeing a portion of the screen share, do go into your view options on Zoom and click on Fit to Window, and hopefully that'll help.
Yes. So this presentation is called Smart Consumers. We have a program called Smart Consumers here in the state office, and we are focusing on COVID-19 scams, the different scams that are very popular right now with COVID-19 and how to prevent that. So before I start, I want to explain some of the programs that we have here in the state office of the comptroller. We recently just had this program called Bank on Illinois. If you like to have any presentations here, please contact our office. I will have our contact information at the end of the presentation. But Bank On is this new program that we have here in the state office of the comptroller, where we help underbanked or unbanked communities get resources to have a safe and secure bank account. So we have that program here at the office. We also have Smart Consumers, which talks about identity theft, how to prevent it and how to identify it. Finance 101, how to manage your finances, and also Next Steps program, which it talks about mostly for high school students, how to manage your finances as you are getting ready for those steps to go into college. And we also have a program called Smart Business Illinois program. And that program talks about what we do in that program is that we help small minority business owners get contracts with the state of Illinois. And those are people who are considered minority as an ethnicity, and also people who are women-owned businesses, who are veteran-owned businesses, and people with disability-owned businesses. So if you do have your own small business here in the state of Illinois, please contact our office and we can actually help you with our Smart Business program. And it's completely free, and we'll guide you through the steps to get a contract here at the state of Illinois. Okay. So about identity theft. Identity theft is a very big issue here in the state of Illinois and also all over the nation. Every year the numbers have been growing and growing. And the issue why we have so many people who are a victim of identity thefts is because, and actually so many people who have not reported it, or people who have not fixed the issue of identity theft, it's because people are not really, they're not aware about how to combat it. So we'll talk about how to combat it right now here in the state of Illinois. So some facts that we have for you here today is that we have $44 million that have been stolen as of the past year due to identity theft. 1 out of 15 Americans have been identified as a victim of identity theft. This is a very common issue that we have here. And then we also have 1 out of 5 Americans who have found reports or errors in their credit report, and only 79% of them were able to amend them. And like I said earlier, people who are unable to amend them is because they don't know how to identify. So we'll talk about that later in the presentation. And over 60,000% of them have reported they were a victim of identity theft since January of 2020. So what is identity theft? Identity theft is when someone unlawfully uses your name and or social security number and or credit card number or bank account number without, of course, your approval. So they'll look for that kind of information and they'll use that for their own gain, for a financial gain, basically. So whenever you come into contact with somebody who calls your phone number, who emails you, and they ask you for your information, it's always very important that you always ask these questions. One is, why is my number needed? How will my number be used? what will happen if I refuse to give my information? And can I provide you with just the last 4 digits in regards to your social security number? It's very important that if you can, to give whoever is on the line the very least amount of information as possible. And also, it's very important that you keep your social security number safe. You should not be giving that out to people who you do not know, people who you're not sure that are authorized to get that information. Also, so in regards to COVID-19, these are some of the most common scams that we have available right now. Right now, we have a lot of constituents who are reporting that they're getting many calls from the IRS, text messages, or emails. And first of all, I just want to make this very clear. The IRS will never call, text, or email you. If they ever have any important information that you have to be notified of, they will send you a letter to your house. They will not call you, they will not text you, and they will not email you. So it's very important that you not respond to any of these messages because they are scams. Also, as of right now, you do not need to pay for a COVID vaccine. Your insurance will pay for that fully. So if you have anybody contacting you saying that you owe money for a COVID-19 vaccine, that is also a sign that you are being scammed. Emails from the Center of Disease Control and Preventions, the World Health Organization, the CDC, and the WHO. It's very important that you do not interact with those emails because that also can be a scam. And if you get any phone calls from a mysterious number who claim they may be the CDC or the WHO, asking you to wire money or to give gift cards to people who you are not aware of, that can also be a scam. And also, you do not need to pay a fee when you receive your stimulus check. The government will not ask you to pay a fee. So we talked a little bit about unemployment fraud earlier, but I just want to show you some signs of unemployment fraud that we have here, with that specifically with the IDES. And if you receive any, which is I think most common right now, people are receiving a lot of debit cards from the IDES or employment insurance letters saying that they have enrolled to the IDES program for unemployment. If you have not enrolled and you're getting this information, it's very important that you're very careful and you do not interact with it. You do not call or register that card. Also, if you notice anything in your state or federal tax offsets, if you've been notified by your employer, some employers will contact you and ask you if you are enrolling for unemployment. It's very important that you take that into great consideration and follow up with that to make sure that your identity is not being stolen. And also, if you are unable to apply for unemployment due to an existing account, a lot of people right now in the state of Illinois are trying to apply for unemployment, but they're unable to because the website says they already have an existing account. And that's something that you should take very cautious and take very seriously. You should look into that more often. Also, if you are a victim of identity theft, it's very important that you report the fraudulent claim with the IDES and the FTC. We will have that information available with you at the end of the presentation. And also, you should not activate your debit card. If you are activating your debit card, you are basically saying that you are unemployed, and that's also part of a fraudulent scam. It's very important that you do not activate it, but instead you report it immediately. And overall, whenever you have, we'll talk about this throughout the presentation. If you ever are worried that you might be a victim of identity theft, you should always, always, always check your credit score for anything that may look suspicious. And we'll talk about what suspicious is later on in the presentation. So identity theft in children. Usually we think of identity theft, we think of adults or senior citizens being victims of identity theft. However, children in the United States are large victims of identity theft because no one ever expects children to be victims. Everyone expects senior citizens or adults to be victims. No one ever thinks that a baby or a toddler could be a victim of identity theft, but it is very common. As of 2020, it's been reported that 39% of children have had their identity stolen, and 60% of them were stolen by friends or family. And that is a very common issue that we have here in the country. I've known in my experience, there has been one constituent that I met earlier on. They told me that their sister took their identity when they were younger because she wanted to buy a car, and she didn't follow up with those payments. And the constituent didn't know that his identity was being stolen by a family member, until he got older and was applying for a loan. He found out that he had really bad credit. So it's very important that, as a parent or as a guardian, that you try to keep your child's information, their birth certificate, their social security number, so that another family member or friend does not take that information. And we'll also show you how to do a credit freeze and a fraud alert. Usually recommend a credit freeze for children or for senior citizens, mostly for people who are not going to be, pulling out a loan or any kind of credit anytime soon. But we'll talk more about what is a credit freeze and what are the requirements to have a credit freeze later in the presentation. So IRS scams, another, so like I mentioned earlier, the IRS will not email you, they will not call you. If you do get an email, please do not reply to it and do not click on any links. Instead, you can forward it to phishing@irs.gov. The link is right here in the presentation. If you click on these or reply on these, you're putting yourself at risk of giving whoever is sending those emails your information, or you can even be giving yourself a virus as well. So it's very important that you do not interact with any IRS emails. For the phones, I recommend that, honestly, I recommend if you get any phone calls that you do not recognize, to just do not answer it. If it is something important, if it's something related to medical or work, for the most part, if it's important, they will leave you a voice message or now a text message. But do not answer any phone calls that you do not recognize. But if you do, and it's, someone that's IRS, or it could be somebody who is maybe from your cable company or whoever, it's very important that you ask for their callback number and employee badge number. If it's a legitimate company, most likely they will give you that kind of information. And you can also contact the IRS and report the incident to the FTC. And I'll have that information available for you at the end of the presentation. So these are some examples from the IRS in regards to phishing emails. So as you can see, the picture on the left is a email that a person might get. Actually, both pictures are an email that someone might get from the IRS. And as you can tell, the email looks actually very real. It actually says Internal Revenue Service, United States Department of Treasury. It looks like a legitimate email. However, as you can see in this email, the IRS, or in this case, the scammer, is asking the person for their social security number, their credit card number, and all this really personal information. This right here is a sign that, it is a scam. They're asking for personal information. They're not, and right here, when you give your credit card number, your personal information, social security number, this is how a person can be a victim of identity theft. They're exposing themselves to a potential scam. So it's very important that you do not click this and do not give this link any of your personal information. So online shopping, right now that we're all at home and a lot of stores are closed, people are being cautious and social distancing, a lot of people are doing their online shopping from home. And this is great, you're trying to be safe. However, it's very important that you're also safe when you're online doing the shopping. It's very important that you use safe links and that you make sure that you are buying things on a safe website. We recommend that you do not save your credit card information to your profile. If your computer ever gets hacked, your credit card will not be saved on there. So it's very important that you do not save your credit card. I know it's tedious. You might have to type in your credit card information every time you go to Amazon or Macy's, but in the long run, you will be happy that your credit card information is not going to be stolen. Also, we recommend that you do pay with your credit card. It has better guarantees under federal law, and that you use secure sites. Look for the padlock. We have a picture right here. You can look for the padlock, and whenever you go to any kind of website, that means that it's a secure website. And also, when you type in a link, we recommend that you type in HTTPS. The S stands for security. So you want to make sure you have the HTTPS and then whatever website that you're going to go on. Also, when you're shopping online, it's very important that you are on a secure internet site or a secure internet account. So when you're going to be purchasing money, putting your credit card information somewhere, you want to go on a secure Wi-Fi network that somebody else might not be hacking. So for instance, if you're somewhere public like a McDonald's or a Starbucks and you're putting your personal information, your credit card or your social security number, somebody who is under that same Wi-Fi can actually hack it and actually see what you're seeing on your screen. So it's very important that when you're using confidential information that you're in a secure Wi-Fi. And secure meaning it could be a personal one. It has to be a Wi-Fi account that there's like a very limited amount of people that are using it at the time, and mostly requires a password, not a public account. So here are some very big scams that have been very popular for many years right now. Of course, we have imposter scams. So this can be IRS imposters. This can be cable company imposters. This can be phone company imposters. So I know constituents have told me in the past that they received calls from their phone company, and the phone company will call or text them and tell them, hey, you haven't been paying your phone bill. If you don't pay it right now, you're going to get cut off. And the person was scared. Honestly, who wouldn't be scared? Because we all need to use our phone for work or for our daily lives. And of course, the person gave them their information, their credit card information, and that person got scammed. So in case you ever if you're in a situation where you think you might be approached by an imposter, of course, it's very important that you ask those 4 important questions. Do I need to give you my information? Can give me my last 4 digits, my social security number. And it's also very important that if you think they might be an imposter, to just hang up and call whoever it is that you're trying to get in contact with. For instance, if it's like a phone company that you're being approached by, hang up and call your actual phone company and ask them, am I short on my bill? Did you receive my payment? And they will tell you if it's legitimate or not. You need to be very careful who you give your credit card, your debit card information to over the phone, because you never know if they are an imposter or not. Another form of scam are fake charities. So fake charities, we all see all these like sad cases online with people who are hurting right now, COVID-19, families who are in desperate need, and communities are in desperate need. So many food drives are going on right now. And it's very important that whenever you want to give charities, which is a very kind thing to do, we recommend that you do your research. You do your research and either call the organization and see if that's the right information that you need to send your money to, and make sure that, or even call your community representative, or you can call our office too, and we can help you figure out if whatever charity you're trying to contact is the correct one. It's very important that you are very careful with your information. For instance, I know there was the Marlene Ochoa case in Chicago. I believe it was 2 years ago, which I don't know if anybody heard about it. It was a really sad situation where this pregnant girl was murdered, and the person who murdered her took her baby, and it was a very, very sad situation. And the family created a GoFundMe page for the daughter and for the baby. But the situation was that because this was a very big popular situation in Chicago, a very sad story, there was like multiple GoFundMe pages, and all of them were scams except for the one that the family made. And so many people were donated. They really wanted to help the family. They had such a sad story. And thousands of dollars went to imposters and scammers because people are out there trying to create these fake charities. So it's very important that you do your research and make sure that you're giving to the right organization, the right cause. Also, another form of a scam are the lotteries, and this is very common. It's been going on for many years, where people call you and they tell you that you want a trip to Hawaii, or you want a trip to somewhere beautiful and amazing, or you want a lot of money as well. But if you did not apply for this kind of lottery or this kind of trip, it's very important that you do not follow it, you do not interact with it. A lot of times, if you call the lottery, someone calls you and they say that you won money with the lottery, and you did not apply for the lottery or buy lottery ticket, they'll ask you for your credit card information just for security measures and so on and so forth. That's how they get you. So you have to be very careful when you interact with anybody who say that you won something that you've never applied for. Also, another form of scam are the cries for help. And this is most common with immigrant families or families who have another member or a friend of a family that's out of town or out of the country. And basically what happens here is that an imposter will call you, for instance, and say that your family member that's in Spain right now is hurt and they need money and they're in the hospital, and a lot of times a lot of people get scared because they think, oh my gosh, my child's in Spain. How do I contact them? How do I give them the help that they need? They're not answering the phone. And they'll actually follow through with the cries of help. Those imposters will look for your most vulnerable spots and they'll try to get you through that. So it's very important that if somebody ever calls you and tells you that a child might be in jail or that they're hurt in another part of the world, that you try to figure out with the child or whoever's with the child if that's true or if that's legitimate. Um, Also, another form of scams are the online sweethearts. Those are also known as catfish. I don't know if anybody's seen the show Catfish, but catfishes and online sweethearts, those are basically when a person thinks, um, for instance, someone may think that they're talking to a 20-year-old girl, but really it's like someone who's not her. It's like an older person or someone who looks totally not like the picture. And basically the online sweetheart will scam the person and they'll ask for money, they'll ask for trips and things and so on and so forth, and they'll try to like talk to the person and try to get their money out of them. And it's very important when you're meeting people online that you're very careful with them. You try to at least do FaceTime, like how we are doing right now, try to see their faces and their voices and see if they're legitimate. And overall, just be very careful who you give your information to and make sure that you're not giving it to someone who you think you're talking who is not someone who you don't think is who you're talking to. Okay. So just a reminder, when you're to be aware of scams, you have to be aware of when you're shopping online using social media. When you're on social media, do not be, I know a lot of young people, they show their driver's license when they get their driver's license. And it's very important that you don't show that personal information. Those driver's license have your date of birth on it, has your driver's ID number on it. Do not share your information. People who are getting the COVID vaccines right now, they're showing their COVID vaccine card, and that also has personal information. You cannot be showing any kind of information on social media that may hurt you in the long run. Also, do your research before shopping online or donating to a charity. I highly recommend that when you're shopping online to use companies and businesses that you know are very are secure, and are not some small business that you heard on the side. Of course, it's great to help small businesses, but make sure you're going to a legitimate business when you're shopping online. Also, do not answer calls you do not recognize. If it is important, they will leave you a voicemail. Do not open strange emails and do not click on any phishing emails. If you open a strange email, it's very important that you do not click on it. Don't click on any information because you might be clicking on a link that enables the scammer to get into your computer, or you can get a virus on your computer. So it's very important when you get in contact with any of that kind of situations. Also, overall, we recommend that constituents do use their gut when they come into these kind of situations. If it is too good to be true, it most likely is. And that's something we have to keep telling ourselves and keep reminding ourselves. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. So if you have been a victim of identity theft, or you think you may have been a victim of identity theft, we're going to talk about some ways to combat it. So fraud protection, which is a fraud alert, is something that is free. It is good for 1 year and can be extended. And what it does is that it warns creditors to verify your identity before using your credit. So this can be, we recommend this for people who have lost their information, or their information has been stolen. And this is basically like a temporary 1 year kind of protection, and it can always be extended as well. And basically, to do a fraud protection, you have to contact one of the 3 credit agencies, and we'll have all the information at the end of the presentation. Now, a credit freeze is more of a long-term kind of like credit protection. We mostly recommend this for senior citizens and for children, people who are not planning anytime soon pulling extra lines of credit. And basically, it just freezes your credit. It does not freeze your current lines of credit. You know, you can still use your credit cards, your loans are still going to be great, but it'll just prevent you from pulling out another loan or another credit card. So it will not affect any kind of credit you have right now at the moment. So basically this alerts creditors to potential fraud. It's indefinite unless you cancel. Of course, this is free. free for everyone. You can do this online, over the phone, or through written letters, and it will not affect your access to credit cards or credit score. So for this, to have a credit to freeze your credit, you'll have to contact all three of the credit bureaus, and we'll also have that information for you at the end of the presentation. And of course, when in doubt, check your bank account information frequently. You can check it on your phone now, you can check it online. If you notice that there's any payments that are suspicious or payments that you don't think that you've done, it's very important that you contact your bank and they will help you through that situation. A lot of times, a lot of scammers, if they do have your bank information, your credit card information, they'll start out taking $1 or $2 at the most. And then when they notice that you're not paying attention, when they notice that the credit card is still valid, they'll start taking more and more and more. So if you notice that there may be a couple of dollars that are a little weird in your credit card, your debit card information, it's very important that you look into that, because at first it starts out as very little, but then later on it could be like $500 that's missing from your bank account. So it's very important that you check that bank account frequently. Also, check your credit report. Check your credit report and see if there's any lines of credit that were pulled that you did not do. We recommend that you do it for children and also for senior citizens. I know a lot of organizations and corporations allow you to do one credit report for free. We recommend a year. So we recommend that you do at least one credit report a year. And also research before you make any kind of donation. Make sure you're putting your information at the right places. So our advice to seniors is be careful who you give your power to attorney to. Make sure you give it to someone that you trust and is very responsible with your information. Record doctor's appointments. Record whenever you go to the doctor, especially with the COVID vaccine that you have right now. Make sure you record when you went to the dentist, when you went to the doctor, because a lot of times scammers, not only will they take your information, but they'll also try to use your medical benefits for themselves too. So it's very important that you record all of that information. And do not give your personal information to strangers. If you feel like someone may not be maybe a stranger or an imposter or a scammer, it's very important that you just take a step back, analyze what's going on. And if you have to hang up on the phone, hang up on the phone, or you can always call the company or call whoever the actual corporation is instead of dealing with the person who's on the phone with you. As a member, you always remind yourself that if it's too good to be true, it most likely is. And talk to your families and friends when you're in doubt. Whenever you come into some kind of imposter situation or scams, it's very important that you share your experience with other people so that they can also prevent that from happening to themselves. And they can even offer you some advice as well. It's very important that in order for us to combat identity theft and scams, that we talk to the people around us so that your friends and family can also secure themselves with that information. So frequently asked questions that we have is that, how can I identify a scammer? We talked about that earlier. If someone's calling you, if the IRS or someone's calling you, you're not sure if they're a legitimate company. They're asking you for your personal information. They're asking you for your social security number. They're asking you for all this information, and you're not sure if it's legit. Always ask those 4 questions that we had in the beginning of the presentations. Can I give you my last 4 digits? Why are you asking me for this kind of information? And can I just confirm the information with you? If they're a legitimate company, they will work with you. Another question that we have is that, how can I check my credit report? You can check your credit report by contacting one of the 3 credit bureaus that we have. I'll have that information with you and then the presentation. And I believe they do have a free credit report there where you can check your credit. And what do I do if I keep getting scam phone calls? On many of the phones, you are able to block the scam phone calls. You can just hang up and just in your phone, you can identify where you can block that number. However, overall, I recommend that if you get any phone calls you do not recognize, to just do not answer it. It's always safest to not answer it. And if it's important, they will always leave you a message or a text message. And what do I do if I get scammed? If you do get scammed, we recommend that you do a fraud alert, or you can also do a credit freeze. Again, the fraud alert, both of them are free. The fraud alert is good for 1 year, and basically you'll have the credit bureaus checking your information. And if they see anything that may be suspicious, they will contact you and ask you if that's legitimate or not. The credit freeze, however, is good indefinitely unless you cancel. And of course, if you want to cancel it, it's also free. And for the credit freeze, you'll have to contact all 3 of the credit bureaus. And if you want to cancel the credit freeze, you still have to contact all 3 of them, since it's a more indefinite and a longer kind of program to apply for. So here are the 3 credit bureaus. We have Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. We have their phone numbers here and their websites as well, where you can apply for the credit freeze or the fraud alert. Again, the fraud alert is good for 1 year, and you have to contact only one of the 3 credit bureaus. They will contact, once you contact one of them, they will contact the other 2 to let them know that you are applying for a fraud alert. For a credit freeze, you have to contact all 3 of them because it is more indefinite. And of course, this is free. You don't have to pay extra fees for them. And if you want to keep continuing with the fraud alert, you can always reapply after a year. To report a scam, you can report either with the Office of the Attorney General. We have their identity theft hotline here and their online website. And we also have the Federal Trade Commission. They have an online application here that you can apply to and report any kind of scams that you have. And you can also, if you've been a victim of unemployment scams, you get calls or kind of emails saying that you're applying for unemployment and you're really not, we highly recommend that you fill out the application here with the IDES, or you can also contact them in this hotline that we have here in the presentation. Okay. And we have a pop quiz here. If you're on Facebook, we highly recommend that you put it in the comments. You can put it in the comments, or you can put it here in the presentation. But basically, to see if you've been paying attention. So please mark your answers in the comment box if you're here. So let's see if you've been paying attention. What form do scams appear in? We have A, phone calls, B, email, C, social media, or all of the above. And of course, scams come in many methods, and they do include phone calls, email, and social media. It's very important that you do not answer any phone calls you do not recognize. It's important that you do not click on any emails that you do not recognize, and also be careful what you post on social media. So the answer is D. So what is fraud alert? Fraud alert is a tool that manages, it could be a tool that manages your finances. Sorry. It could be a tool that sends alerts to creditors and lenders, a tool that saves your password, C, or D, a tool that protects you from viruses. So fraud alert is a tool, letter B, that sends alerts to creditors and lenders. So it'll alert one of the 3 credit bureaus if you have any situations, if there's any fraud that could be identified in your accounts. It will go directly to the creditors, and the creditors will contact you if they detect any kind of fraud into your account. If anybody tries to open a credit card in your account, if anybody tries to steal your information or uses the social security numbers, the credit bureaus will contact you and they'll be notified, and that's what the fraud alert is. All right. Okay, I see some questions. I'm gonna answer it after we finish this little pop quiz. All right, so who do you contact to apply for the fraud alert? So remember, the fraud alert is the 1 year program. We have A, Experian, B, Equifax, and C, TransUnion, and D, all of the above. So when you're I clicked something, sorry. So the fraud alert, just a reminder, a fraud alert, when you're applying for a fraud alert, you have to contact one of these 3 credit bureaus, just one of them. Once you contact, so the answer is D here. Once you contact them, they will contact the rest of them to finish off the fraud alert application for you. So what is a credit freeze? Credit freeze could be A, identity theft game, B, federal department, C, a tool that protects your credit, or D, an informational class. So it's a little bit easy. The answer here is C, it's a tool that protects your credit. So similar to the fraud alert, the credit freeze will, the credit bureaus will get notified if there's any kind of suspicious things going in your credit account, like the fraud alert, if somebody tries to pull another line of credit in your account. So it does protect your credit and does try to identify any kind of weird scams that are going on in your account. Okay, who do you call to apply for a credit freeze? Is it A, Experian, or A, Equifax, B, Experian, C, TransUnion, or D, all of the above?
I think we did this one already, Samantha.
I think this is the credit freeze, so it's a little different. It's a little different. So we have fraud alert and we have credit freeze. So the credit freeze is the longer lasting one. This is the one that lasts indefinitely unless you want to cancel it. And I do have a D here. Somebody put D, someone put C here in the box. And the answer is, of course, D, all of the above. So because it's a longer lasting application, a longer lasting program, you do have to contact every single one of them to do the credit freeze. And if you want to cancel, you have to call all three of them again. It's a little bit tedious, but that's the kind of work that you have to do for a longer lasting program, longer lasting protection. So what do you do if you've been a victim of identity theft or a victim of a scam? Could you A, call your bank, B, freeze your credit, C, sign up for a fraud alert, or D, all of the above? All right, I see a D here in the chat box. So yes, D is all of the above. These are all your options and what you should do. Call your bank. If you need to get a new debit card or credit card number, you should do that. You have the option to freeze your credit, and you also have the options to do a fraud alert as well to protect yourself. So the answer is D. Okay, so I'm going to answer the questions that are here.
Yeah, so I think our first question was, did IDES automatically send out debit cards, even if there was not an application? And I'm assuming even, he means even if there was not an actual claim filed with IDES.
Yes. So I believe for the IDES, the actual IDES, you have to fill out an application. They're not just going to give out debit cards to random people. They have to have somebody, when you're applying for unemployment, you have to fill out an application, and then you also have to get interviewed, and they have to have an investigation to see if the person who is applying for unemployment is actually unemployed. So they will not give you debit cards for free. I know it sounds nice to have free money, but they're not going to give you debit cards for no reason. So if you do receive a debit card, it is very important that you contact the IDES and report that you have a credit, a debit card that was not that you didn't apply for.
Right. So Steve, I think that that's kind of directed to your point, is that if you were to get in the mail, I think a lot of people have gotten the debit cards from KeyBank and that sort of thing. If you do get one of those and you know you didn't apply for it, you absolutely not only want to let IDES know, but you may also want to go through some of the steps that Samantha identified in terms of, you know, checking your credit score, doing some of the, you know, the freezes and that sort of thing, and the fraud alerts, because that means that somebody has tried to do identity theft in your name to get that debit card. And the same is going to apply as well. So one of the, Samantha, just to follow up on that, one of the things that I've gotten a lot of questions about in the district office is people will get things sent to their home address. So maybe it's being sent to the correct address, but it's either a previous resident or maybe someone who, you know, lives the next house over, or it'll be, you know, a completely unknown name for someone who's applying. What should someone do in that sort of scenario?
So I'm sorry, can you rephrase the question? The person is,
Yeah, so so for example, say someone sends, you say they get something that's, you know, got IDS on it, or it's one of the key bank cards, and it was addressed to the correct numerical address. So 123 South Fifth Street. But the name is not my name. It's not my spouse's name. It's not a kid's name. Maybe it is the person who lived in the house before me, or it will be a name that I don't know, or maybe it'll be my next door neighbor's name, but not my name. What should someone do in that situation?
I would recommend contacting the IDS immediately, letting them know that someone's information or their card went to the wrong address. You might make that situation, that process a little bit faster for whoever it was, if it is the correct person. Um, but honestly, if you get something that does not belong to you and it's in regards to the IDS, whether you applied for it or not, or it is not, you know, mentioned towards you and is mentioned towards a stranger, always contact the IDS and report that.
I think one of our next questions was from Adeline. She said, I get a lot of calls for a car warranty, and the caller says to press 1 to remove my name from the calling list. Should I do that?
I recommend that you do not. You should not do that because you do not know if it's a legitimate company or a legitimate car warranty company. And that's a very common kind of like one of those phone calls that you get, those robocalls saying that you have a car, you need to call for a car warranty or so on and so forth. Do not press it because you don't know if by you pressing it, you're going to get scammed. You don't know if you're going to be authorizing them to get your information or anything like that. Do not click it. And I recommend if you can just block the number or do not answer any phone calls you do not recognize. If it's really important, they will always leave you a message.
You know, and to follow up on that, especially, you know, today everybody's got their smartphones, and everyone's smartphone has a unique advertiser ID number on it. So one of the other things too is that you know, for some phones, if somebody doesn't necessarily know is this phone number associated with a particular address, you know, when you press 1, that might make it easier for somebody to try to find you or to locate you, or better pinpoint what zip code you live in, or maybe even your address or what your advertiser ID number is, that they in turn can then, you know, link back to a name and an address. So, you know, to me, and I mean, I just won't engage in telemarketers at all. And, you know, even if they promise we'll take you off the list, even when, you know, sometimes when you get unsubscribe lists on email, oh, we just sent you an email and now unsubscribe. Sometimes the sheer act of you responding to that email can give them sufficient identifying information about you that could come back to haunt you later on. So I think Samantha's exactly right. Is, you know, ignore them as much as you can, and don't respond. And certainly, especially if it's an email, you don't want to click on any link that's in those emails, because that can deposit cookies in your account and or on your computer, and can be a vehicle for spyware.
Yes.
One of our other questions is LifeLock worth the money I'm sending them yearly? Maybe we can just take LifeLock out of it and talk about just some of these credit monitoring agencies in general. Samantha, I don't know if you have the ability to answer that or not.
Yeah, so I'm not very familiar with LifeLock or other companies, but I do know with the credit freeze and the fraud alert with the 3 credit bureaus, they're free. They're completely free. If you want to test it out, you can test it out definitely, but it will not hurt to have the fraud alert or the credit freeze as well. I'm not familiar with other identity theft companies do, but because they're a government agency, we do highly recommend it. And they're very large, been going on for a long time. And overall, if you ever think that you may be a victim of identity theft, if you worry, you notice that there's some strange payment to your debit card, or you're finding weird reports in your credit report, you can always do a fraud alert. You can always do a credit freeze, um, and they're always available for you, and they're free.
Yeah, and I would say though, you know, I think is some of the things that Samantha identified, a lot of it, you know, does require people to be proactive. So I think if you're the type of person who perhaps is not going to be proactive in of, checking your account or something like that, that could potentially be worth the money. If you are in a situation where maybe you're going to be traveling and not necessarily checking mail, or maybe you've got a community mailbox, or something where people might be able to gain access to some of your confidential information in a way that's out of the ordinary, it might be worth doing. I actually have credit monitoring services because I'm an elected official and so much information is publicly known about me. So for me, just having that extra level of security gives me a bit of peace of mind. Whether it's genuinely worth the money, I can't predict, but I think everybody's going to have a different level of risk tolerance on things like that. Samantha, one question that we did get in had to do with when it comes to emails, in terms of one technique I know that some people will use, and this is kind of relevant to people in our district. If you've ever tried to wire funds, people will send fraudulent wiring instructions. Say if you're trying to purchase a house or purchase a car, or purchase something where banks want you to wire funds. Those should, ideally never be sent through email, or if they do, with something with an independent password security. Similarly, you wouldn't want to put your, don't ever put a credit card number in an unsecured email, because again, anybody who could then, spoof your email traffic going in one direction or another. It just, that can be another way where your identity and your financial information could get compromised. Samantha, I don't know if you've ever seen the.
I'm sorry, I think you froze.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I think when it comes to things like wire instructions and putting financial information such as bank accounts, credit card numbers in emails, that even if you're only sending it to maybe one or two people, you don't know where they can forward it. You don't know if their systems could potentially be getting scammed. Is that something that you've encountered, and advice for people to deal with that type of situation?
Yes, for wiring, I'm not too familiar with the wiring, but I know we always recommend people that, be very careful where you're sending your money, your information to. If you're getting calls in the middle of the night telling you that your family's hurt, they need to wire money. A lot of people, they're telling elderly seniors to go to Target and to wire money through Target or Walmart. Be very careful with that. I even heard an experience one time where an elderly woman told me that somebody told her to go to Walmart or Target to wire some kind of money to them because they were getting scammed. And if they tell the woman in Target or whoever it was that, who they're speaking to, they won't be able to help them. So, of course, like in Target and Walmart, specifically, I think this was Target that the woman is talking about. In Target, the employees noticed that she was on the phone with somebody while she was doing the wiring. And they asked her, who is she talking to? Is everything okay? And the woman was scared because she thought that, if she identifies who she's talking to, they're not going to help her. And it was an elderly woman. So of course, all these corporations they're being trained to help people with becoming victims of identity theft. But you have to be careful who you're talking to. If you're talking to an organization, they're telling you to wire money, just hang up and call the organization, ask them if that was a legitimate email or not. It's better to be safe than sorry, and always follow your gut whenever you come into these kind of situations.
Okay. All right. Yes, we got another comment. Yeah. So Janice, your experience that you just talked about here in the chat box is very similar to what a lot of people who have called into our office have talked about. They receive the unemployment insurance finding letter. They call IDES, and it'll be either a false name or a false claim. You might not have even worked for the employer who's listed there. And it sounds like, Janice, you did the right thing in the sense of notifying the FTC, filing the police report, notifying IDES. You received the debit card, but didn't use it. At least somebody there didn't try to, break into your mailbox. but then, a few days later, get another letter saying IDES needed more information. Yeah, they said the deadline to reply was January 25th, and you received the letter on January 27th. Yeah, welcome to government. So, but yeah, you said you notified your bank and put a fraud alert with them, notified the credit card company and the FTC. That certainly sounds like everything you should have done. Samantha, I don't know if you have any additional advice on additional steps that someone could take in that situation just to try to protect themselves.
Yes, I will still contact the IDES. You might have it on record that you are applying for unemployment. And, God forbid, if you ever do need unemployment, you might not be qualified or you might not be able to make an account because someone's already using your personal information. So I do recommend you contact IDES so that you do not have any kind of record of that unemployment. And you always have, and if you, God forbid, you need to apply for unemployment, you will be able to.
Yeah, no, Samantha, again, so one of the things that people in the district have been finding is when they report this into IDES, they send it in and then they get no response from IDES. And that's why I would actually encourage anyone, when you encounter this, please reach out to my district office, because we are trying to keep records of as many of this as we can, not only so that if in the future something were to go wrong, you can notify not only did you tell IDES, you also verified that with us, so we can at least try to help you on that. But we have spent hours trying to get a hold of people at IDES just to get follow-up information, so that we can tell them, look, you have to respond to these people, you need to give them a phone call, you need to give them a letter confirming that that you're acknowledging the fraud. And actually, that's part of the legislation that I'm working on, is to require IDES to give you written documentation within 24 to 48 hours that you have reported the fraud, so that if something were to come back later, so that you're not going to be in trouble for something that the fraudster engaged in. And I think Samantha mentioned earlier, if you're using a credit card, there's actually all kinds of fraud protections that are built in and caps on your liability. We don't necessarily have that that same degree of protection at the state level, and I think that's not good for people in Illinois. You shouldn't be penalized for a government screw up.
Yes, and I know the IDES, they're being extremely overwhelmed right now with all these unemployment scams that are going on with the pandemic and everything, and they're trying their best. They are trying their best, that I've heard. But also, I believe there is an online application for scams and identity theft for IDES on the website. I do have a link here in the presentation. I can probably go back. I'll go back right now. Oh.
Yeah, I think if you could show that, and then we've also had a request to put up again the phone numbers for the 3 credit bureaus.
Yes. So here is the current slide. So right here in this link right here, here's an online application that you can go to all the way on the right side of the screen. You can go there and also report any kind of claims or fraud that you have for IDES, for unemployment. You can go there, and I believe you should have some kind of confirmation that you sent in a request. They are being overwhelmed right now, but I know they are trying their best that they can right now. Maybe it could be with things are going on, it could be a little difficult, but there is an online application that you could apply for. And then, so you have here the online application. You also have the phone number right here. And I will go to the credit bureaus.
Yeah, and for those who are watching, what we can also do is we can, we'll get a copy of this presentation from Samantha. So you can definitely email me at mazzochi@ilhousegop.org, and we will be happy to email you a copy of it as well. So, or feel free to call into the office, 630-852-8633, and I'll put those two in the chat box as well, so that you can reach out to our office, and we will be happy to send that information off to you so that you have it.
All right, I'm reading another question here.
I think we got most of them. If I could follow up with you, Samantha, one, you mentioned earlier, and I thought that was really interesting, ID theft for children, right? So someone steals their social security card and goes to apply for a loan, or steals their identity for that. What are some, how is that type of thing actually caught usually?
Unfortunately, you can of course check it when you do a credit or when you check your credit score. You can always do that. But the issue with that is that a lot of people are not checking. It's very uncommon for people to check the credit score of a child or an infant or even children while they become teenagers. They don't really check their credit score until they actually are applying for some kind of form of credit. So we do recommend that you check. Well, honestly, for children, we recommend you do a credit freeze. You do a credit freeze so that the information is secure. When you do a credit freeze, they're going to ask you to make some kind of security questions. And as the guardian or the parent, it's very important that you create security questions that are easy for the child to remember. So if you ask them, what was the name of your favorite dog? That child may have like 2 or 3 other dogs when they grow up, and they might not have the same favorite dog when they get older. So it's very important that you create questions and answers that are very easy for the child to identify when they become 18 or 20 or 25 or however they have to be. But you should check the credit score if you do not want to do a credit freeze for the child, and always try to secure their information. Put their information somewhere safe that someone else might not have access to. Also, whenever you're throwing out any kind of mail for a child or an adult, it's very important that you do not throw out or recycle important information such as social security numbers, date of birth, your credit card or debit card number. When you're throwing out that kind of mail, you can either shred it or you can scratch it out with a Sharpie if you think it comes off like that. But it's very important that you throw out any kind of confidential information when you're throwing it out, and also save the important information like social security cards and save it somewhere where it's going to be safe. You should not, by any circumstances, be carrying your social security card with you as if it's an ID. That should be somewhere safe unless you actually need it. Because if your wallet is stolen or your purse is stolen, that person who stole your wallet or purse, they'll have your social security number with them. So it's always very important that you keep that somewhere safe.
So one of the questions that we have is, how do the IDES scammers make their money? Do they have our credit card number? Is this something that we have to be vigilant about for years to come?
So the IDES scammers, basically, from my understanding, they're applying for unemployment under your name. So they're taking the money that you will be making as an unemployed citizen, and they're keeping it for themselves. So they're getting the unemployment money that you would be making.
And I think, and I think that part of that too is that once they actually even get that, maybe so like for the debit card or something like that, what they might do is, even if it's something that's coming directly to your house, like the debit card or something along those lines, once that is established for maybe a month or something like that, then they can do another address change, and get things rerouted to a different location. They might be able to take the proof of the unemployment insurance and turn around and apply for, either a payday loan or something along those lines. So, there are all kinds of ways that that potential proof of an unemployment insurance dollars that are coming their way, that can be used in a whole host of ways to try to extract some money out of the financial system. And in terms of something to be vigilant for years to come, hopefully it won't take years. But again, one of the things that I'm really focused on is, trying to make sure that we've got, much more stringent authentication of the information that people are using to apply for benefits, to make sure that we're not giving this information out fraudulently. All right, I do want to do one last call for questions, and so if there's anything else, please do put it in the Q&A box. I'm going to check to see whether anything else has come in through Facebook Live. One of the other questions that said, someone asked if we're keeping track of IDS claims in our office. Absolutely, please do email us that you were the victim of identity fraud, because we do really want to try to get a sense of how big of the scope of the problem this really is. And the more details and information that we get in terms of how these scams are working, who's being impacted, how are people getting targeted, again, we can start working on the legislation to try to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen again. And again, I put our email address in the chat box as well as our office phone number. So we do encourage you to reach out with anything you can. All right, so with that, and my last name, I was also asked, how do I pronounce my last name? So it is Deanne Mazzochi. So I like to say, use a Chicago accent, and then when you see the CH followed by a vowel sign in Italian, that's often pronounced as a K sound, like gnocchi or bruschetta. So it's Mazzochi. So key at the last part of the name. But my name's been butchered so many times over the years that I pretty much answer to anything that sounds remotely close. All right, so with that, I do want to say again, thank you so much to Samantha and the Comptroller's Office for this presentation for our district residents. I know that we only scratched the surface on a whole bunch of these issues, but hopefully you found the information helpful. I do want to again remind everyone, if you discover a fraudulent unemployment insurance claim that's been issued in your name, call the IDES, Illinois Department of Employment Security. I'll give you the number again. It is 1-800-814-0513. And again, you can also report the fraud online. And again, please do feel free to reach out to our office anytime, 630-852-8633, or email at mazzochi@ilhousegop.org. So, and we're happy to help you either with this or any other questions that you may have relating to anything involving state government, local government. The only thing we do try to stay away from is Congress and the federal level. But if you need some help navigating that, we have people who are willing to try to help you to make sure that you get your questions answered, at least from the right agency or level of state, local, or federal government. So with that, I do want to say that on behalf of myself and for Samantha, it is an honor for all of us to be in state government and to serve you. And we are here to help you any way that we can. So please feel free to reach out. Again, Samantha, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for attending tonight, and be safe.